The rain has been hammering the asphalt all night. I'm standing at the window, high above the empty streets, watching red taillights smear across wet reflections. It's so dark that I can't see the mountains, can't even see the alley behind our house, but I can taste the bitterness of the storm through the glass. Every drop hits the city like a warning, slow and insistent. And I'm here, motionless, holding my breath as if I might hear a single different sound behind me. Her footsteps. She's late again. I remember the exact moment I first noticed something was off, like a punch that doesn't land on your jaw, but stings just the same. That night, she came home, tossed her coat on the armchair, and set her phone face down on the kitchen counter. But the corners of her mouth were drawn tight, as though she was wrestling with something inside. And then, quietly, almost like she didn't want me to hear, she flicked off the GPS on her phone. I'd never seen her do that before, not once in all our years together. She tried to act casual, but my heart began to pound so loudly that I could have sworn she heard it. Now I see the city swallowed by darkness and realize it's been weeks, maybe a full month, since that moment. The suspicion, the nerves, the strange tension in her eyes when she looks at me, or avoids looking at me, have all been building up to this unstoppable flood. Tonight I can't think of anything else but the final confrontation. There's no calm, no real comfort, only the numb dread of a man who has discovered his wife's secrets. And the next step I took, the one that sealed our fates, was hiring him, the private detective. I handpicked the very man who would worm his way into her heart. If there's a single humiliating truth I'll never outrun, it's that I opened the door, laid down the rug, and practically welcomed him in. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. She used to call me Johnny when we first got married, with a smile that seemed endless. We'd go camping in the Rockies, hiking up to ridges that overlooked entire valleys. We'd share a thermos of coffee at dawn and laugh about everything. Our families, our future kids, or how to arrange furniture in some dream house we couldn't afford. Those days felt real. We were so young, so damn sure that marriage was a fortress nobody could breach. But that fortress had cracks I ignored. I don't even know if the first real blow was the night she came home quiet and anxious, or if it was the second or third time she flipped off her phone's location. Each time, it was like a pin sliding into my chest, reminding me how little I really knew about her life outside these walls. I remember that thick sense of dread. A man doesn't want to suspect his wife. In our vows, we promised trust. I believed those words as if they were carved in stone. But trust is a fragile thing, more fragile than bone. And once you see the cracks, you can't unsee them. That's when I started turning the house upside down. Not literally rummaging through drawers like a madman, but I'd notice little things, a receipt from a bar I didn't recognize, a tiny tear in her blouse that she never explained, or a new pair of shoes she didn't mention buying. The tension was almost physical. I dreaded the moment she'd walk in and see the question in my eyes, because eventually that question had to slip out of my mouth. But we kept dancing around it, polite, forced, each of us playing roles. We'd eat dinner in silence, mostly. She was always typing on her phone, or focusing on the TV with unnatural intensity. I tried to pretend we were just going through a rough patch, maybe a slump in the marriage, but every quiet moment felt like my ears were ringing with suspicions. I needed facts. I needed an answer to the ugly question pounding in my skull. Who is she seeing? I'm an it guy by trade, methodical, and not prone to wild fantasies. So I told myself, gather evidence. That's how you fix a suspicion. Prove it or disprove it. I approached the detective's agency on a rainy afternoon, ironically much like tonight. Water poured from the gutter in front of his office. I remember stepping over a puddle so deep it nearly swallowed my shoe. That was my first impression of him. Strong handshake, calm eyes, a neutral expression that gave nothing away. His name was Michael R. He gave me a courteous nod, jotted down some notes, asked me questions I never thought I'd say out loud about my wife. Any changes in her routine? Does she keep secrets about finances? Any new male friends? I answered him with a strained voice, forcing out confessions. She's been turning off her GPS. She's come home later and later. She's definitely hiding something. And he said, I'll find out. That's what I do. He looked professional, wore casual clothes, but carried a certain self-assuredness in his posture. I liked that. I liked that he seemed capable. I thought I was being smart, hiring the best. After all, I wasn't some gullible fool. I was being proactive. Right? Oh, irony. In the weeks that followed, I'd get text updates from him. Usually short, to the point. No suspicious activity today. Or, she left the office on time, returned home, no stops in between. Each text felt like an injection of relief into my veins. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe she just needed some privacy. Maybe she was dealing with some personal crisis, or some family secret. I even half convinced her to take a DNA test one day. I'd made up some story about strange coincidences with her relatives, grasping at anything to see if she'd flinch. She didn't. She looked a bit annoyed, but agreed almost too easily. Then there came a week when his updates went silent. No texts, no calls. I tried to contact him. All I got was his voicemail. Part of me started to panic. Had something happened? And then the next message I received, 4 days late, was an address. Just that. An address, a time, and a single line. Come see for yourself. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I'll never forget the taste of that cheap diner coffee as I pulled into some dimly lit parking lot near the outskirts of town. I got out of the car. Rain hammered the hood, slicking everything in a dull sheen. The address led me to a small motel, the kind with flickering neon signs and cracked windows. Even from across the lot, I could see his car, and next to it, my wife's sit-in. My chest nearly caved in. I clenched the steering wheel so hard my knuckles felt like they'd snap. I stepped out into the downpour, half-dazed, glancing around as if I might see something else that would explain away the obvious. But each step closer to that building pounded the truth deeper into my skull. My wife was in that motel, in some cheap, ugly room. The final blow. I saw a figure pass behind a drawn curtain. Tall, broad-shouldered. I recognized the stance. It was him. The man I'd paid to find out if my wife was cheating had become her lover. My head rang, and for a moment I felt detached from my body. Raindrops slid down my face, and my teeth clenched so tight they hurt. I wanted to storm inside, kick the door down, and tear that entire place to pieces. But something in me, a final shred of self-control, held me back. Instead, I walked around to a side corridor, pressed my ear to a thin wooden panel, hearing muffled sounds, soft moans. Her voice, a whisper that stabbed my chest. Then a moment later, his voice, low and intimate, calling her name. It was the kind of raw intimacy a husband never wants to discover secondhand. This was no fleeting affair. Their closeness, their passion, was painfully real. With my heart pounding like a war drum, I sank to my knees on the drenched concrete, letting the raindrops wash over me. My mind spun with images of our life together. Her laugh, the day she said yes to my proposal, the little inside jokes we shared. All of it crumbling in that vile motel corridor. I don't know how long I stayed there, trembling in the downpour, listening to the sounds that confirmed every nightmare. It felt like hours. And eventually I dragged myself back to the car. I drove away, not trusting myself to confront them yet. I was shaking so badly that the steering wheel jerked under my hands. The entire night, I hovered between wanting to smash something and wanting to break down completely. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. When she got home hours later, I watched her from the kitchen table. She entered in her usual careful way, like she was checking if I was awake or not. Our house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I waited until she hung her coat and removed her wet shoes. Then I said, without turning to look directly at her, "You're late." She froze for a second, but answered with a weary voice, "I had errands. I forced out a short laugh. Sure. Errands. She walked into the kitchen, avoided my eyes, and rummaged in the cupboard for a glass. I kept staring at her, wanting, needing, to see some sign of remorse, guilt, or even fear. But instead, she just looked exhausted, resigned. I wanted to quote her own words back at her. Those times she joked about how only a coward doesn't face the truth. But I stayed silent. She poured water, gulped it down, then placed the glass on the table next to my phone. Finally, I said, "You remember your old line. Don't keep secrets from me." She hesitated, lips parted as if searching for the right lie. But then her shoulders slumped, and all she said was, "I'm sorry." It wasn't even a real apology, more like a placeholder. She didn't mention what she was sorry for, didn't try to explain. She just stared at the water in her glass like it might give her an answer. I realized then that my entire approach to this was wrong. I didn't want to hear her version. There was no version of events that could heal the wound. The real blow, the ultimate betrayal, had already happened. And yet, a tiny spark of love inside me kept screaming that maybe we could find a path back. That spark was a curse. I clenched my fists under the table, pressing nails into my palms until it stung enough to keep me from exploding. Finally, I just said, "Take your shower. Go to bed. We'll talk tomorrow." She nodded, didn't even protest. She just disappeared into the hallway, leaving me alone with the echo of water dripping from her coat onto the floor. The next day, I cooked dinner as usual. We'd always shared that chore, but over the last month or so, I ended up doing it alone. It had become a strange ritual, setting 2 plates, waiting for her to come sit, but she'd barely touch her food. I was furious, but somehow that routine anchored me. The sizzling of the pan, the smell of spices, these small, ordinary details that used to mean comfort and home. She entered the kitchen, hair still damp from her shower, wearing a plain sweater and sweatpants. She looked more like a ghost than a living person. She didn't even glance at me. I set the plate in front of her, but she just stared at it with hollow eyes. I wanted to lash out, throw the plate against the wall, scream, demand she speak. But I remembered all those times she said, "Don't push me. I hate confrontation." Instead, I used her own words from the past, words she once aimed at me whenever I'd withdraw. "You can talk to me," I said quietly with an edge to my voice. "Don't bottle it up. Say something." Her gaze drifted up to me with a spark of anger. "I have nothing to say." I felt a cold fury ignite in my chest. So that's how it was going to be. A silent war in our own home. She might as well have stabbed me. "Damn it," I whispered, "you owe me more than that." She pushed her chair back, letting the fork clatter onto the plate. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? That it's your fault? That I'm confused?" Nothing I say will fix this. A beat of silence, thick and suffocating. I inhaled, controlling my anger with a trembling jaw. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" She tilted her head, blinking as though she was on the verge of tears. But no tears fell. "I thought I could keep it separate," she said in a voice that was half choked. "I never meant to hurt you. I just needed." "Needed what?" My voice rose, more than I intended. "Another man. A stranger." She jerked her gaze away. "He was never a stranger. Not after we met." Those words sank into my gut like a knife. I forced myself to speak calmly, though my voice still shook. "He's the detective I hired to watch you." She nodded, looking suddenly small. "I know." I bit down so hard on my lip, I tasted blood. She had known. All this time, she must have known. The twisted irony turned my stomach. I pictured him sitting in some dark car, trailing her, making phone calls to me, feeding me half-truths, while seducing her behind my back. A vile sense of humiliation washed over me. I slapped my hand on the table, rattling the plates. "Do you realize what you did to us?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She just stared at me, eyes wide with a mix of fear and defiance. Then she stood and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her dinner untouched. I let her go. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Days passed in a tense standstill. I wanted to confront him face to face, to break his nose, to demand an explanation. But the searing image of that motel room, I knew I couldn't handle it rationally. Part of me wanted to wait, to gather more evidence, to strike with calculated vengeance. Another part of me wanted to corner him in an alley somewhere and break his bones. In the end, I did nothing but simmer. One evening, she came home later than usual, face pale, shoulders slumped. She walked into the kitchen, where I placed 2 bowls of stew on the table. I was stirring my spoon, trying to appear calm, but my stomach twisted with anger and heartbreak. She hovered at the threshold, arms folded, as though she couldn't stand to be in the same room. I gestured to the empty seat. "Eat." She stepped forward. I thought maybe she would talk. Instead, she picked up a spoon, stirred the stew, took one bite, then set it down. Her lips trembled. She looked straight at me with an unsettling vacancy. "He didn't come tonight," she said suddenly. "He said he had another case." She paused, then gave a bitter half-laugh. "So I guess you get me all to yourself." Anger burned through my veins. "And I'm supposed to be grateful." She shrugged. "I'm telling you because it's the truth. That's all." I almost wanted to strike the table again, but I forced my hands to remain steady on the spoon. "You used to say the truth sets us free, remember?" I said, throwing her old phrase back at her. "Look at us now. Are we free? Or just trapped in this disgusting triangle you've created?" Her voice cracked. "You think I wanted this?" "I don't know," I hissed. "But you did it anyway. And he's supposed to be collecting evidence on you. Well, guess what? He did, but not the kind you think." She let out a shaky breath, then turned on her heel and left, her footsteps echoing down the hall until they vanished into the bedroom. I sat alone, the second bowl of stew growing cold. That night, I ate both portions, forcing the food down through a knot in my throat, the taste of betrayal coating every mouthful. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. She barely spoke to me after that. We became strangers who shared a roof, passing each other in the corridors like shadows. If her phone buzzed with a message from him, I'd see her eyes flick down. She'd click it off, slip it into her pocket, and walk away. Every time, it reminded me of the motel, the moans, the touch they shared, a flick of jealousy so hot it blinded me. I hated him. I hated her. I hated myself for still wanting her. I kept telling myself I'd do something definitive. Bring the confrontation to a head, or throw her out, or pack my bags and leave. But I was paralyzed by conflicting emotions. She was my wife, the woman I'd chosen to spend my life with. Did that love vanish just because she tore my heart out? Not exactly. It hid behind a wall of anger, but it was still there, complicating everything. One night, I lay awake, eyes wide in the dark, listening to the wind rattle the window panes. The bed beside me was cold. She'd never come in. I imagined her lying on the couch, or maybe not even home. The emptiness of the house pressed on my chest. We used to talk at night, make plans, joke about ridiculous things. Now I was left with a black hole of questions. At around 2 a.m., I got up, walked into the living room. I found her sitting in the armchair, knees pulled up to her chest, staring into the dark. She looked up, startled. We locked eyes in the dim glow of a street lamp shining through the curtains. Without warning, I asked, "Do you love him?" Her lips parted, silent. "Tell me." My voice was calm, too calm, as though forced into an eerie stillness by my own heartbreak. She swallowed. "I don't know." I nodded slowly, stepping further into the room, until I stood over her. I could see her face glisten with half-formed tears. "Don't you think you owe me that much?" I said. An answer. She exhaled shakily. "It's not about love. It's about feeling alive." That knocked the breath out of me. Alive. As if everything we had wasn't life enough. As if the years of marriage, the plans, the warm dinners, the silly inside jokes, the quiet weekends together, none of that felt alive to her. A wave of bitterness rose in my throat. I turned away so I wouldn't unleash something terrible. Eventually, I realized I needed a plan. Mindlessly stumbling through each day, consumed by jealousy, was draining what little dignity I had left. So I tried to collect more information, ironically continuing the very process that had sparked this catastrophe. I went through phone records, credit card statements, anything that might show me if she and the detective were meeting again. Each piece of evidence confirmed the obvious. They were in contact regularly. But I also discovered something else. He'd been sending me false updates for weeks before going silent. The timeline lined up perfectly with her bizarre behavior. Everything pointed to the same ugly truth. They'd been together from near the start. My own infiltration plan had become a twisted invitation for them to bond. By the time I confronted him in person, the tension in my gut had turned to cold resolve. He was waiting in his half-empty office, a single overhead light flickering. The building was mostly deserted. Late at night, most people had gone home to families or lovers. I guess he stayed behind to tie up business. As soon as I entered, he stood up, posture rigid, as if expecting a fight. I didn't disappoint him. My first words were, "You enjoy my wife." He let out a slow breath, lips tightening. "Look, you need to understand." My fist connected with his jaw before he could finish the sentence. It felt like lightning surging up my arm, a savage satisfaction. He stumbled back, knocking into his desk. Papers flew everywhere. He rubbed his jaw, eyes blazing. "Damn it, man." I stood there, chest heaving. "No, you don't get to speak." Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the readiness to strike back. But he didn't. Maybe he thought he owed me that much, or maybe he was measuring the risk, thinking about the potential assault charges. Regardless, he stayed put. A moment stretched. The building's old pipes hissed overhead. "Finally," he said, "she came to me first, after you hired me. She knew. She recognized me from an old case. Things happened." My voice was low, deadly calm. "Things happened," I repeated. "Just like that. She's my wife. And you sold me out." He set his jaw, wiping the blood from his chin. "I didn't plan it. Sometimes people connect. And it's not about money or jobs. It's about—" I slammed my hand on his desk, causing it to rattle. "Don't romanticize this. You betrayed me. She betrayed me." He frowned, breathing hard. "I'm sorry. For what it's worth." I let out a hollow laugh. "It's worth less than nothing." We glared at each other, raw fury crackling in the air. I wanted to hit him again, but a numbness spread through my limbs. I realized it wouldn't change anything. Maybe I wanted more from him, an apology, an admission, or some justification that would help me sleep at night. But there was nothing but hollow regret in his eyes. I turned on my heel and marched out, leaving him bleeding and silent among the scattered papers. That night, I came home to find her sitting at the kitchen table, gazing at 2 empty plates. My plates. She didn't look surprised to see me walk in with bruised knuckles. She just stared at my clenched hands. "Did you hit him?" she asked softly. "I did." She nodded, eyes flickering with complicated emotion. "Do you feel better?" I hesitated, then shrugged. "No." She lowered her head, tears threatening but not quite falling. "I never wanted it to go like this. I never wanted to hurt you." "You keep saying that," I murmured, dropping into the opposite chair. "But you did. And you still are." Silence. I realized that behind my anger, behind the heartbreak, I was exhausted. My shoulders sagged under the weight of betrayal. I searched her face. She was a woman I used to know better than anyone in this world, but now her eyes were distant, like she was in some other life. I reached out, almost touching her hand, then pulled back. Why? My voice was almost a whisper. Why him? Why it all? She sniffed, blinking fast. I told you. I felt empty. Then I met him. He listened. He made me feel seen. I wasn't planning on betraying you. But the first time. She paused, color flooding her cheeks, a tear sliding down. It just happened. And after that, I couldn't stop. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Couldn't stop what? Sleeping with him. She nodded, face crumpling. I stared at my knuckles, the skin raw. For a moment, my mind flashed with images of them together, entangled in that motel. The memory churned my stomach. Then I took a slow breath and said, I still love you, God help me. Her breath caught. She bowed her head, trembling. You shouldn't. Not after this. I closed my eyes, letting a new wave of anguish roll over me. No, I shouldn't. But here I am. And I hate myself for it. Her quiet sobs filled the air, but she kept them small, as though she didn't want to burden me with them. I stood, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. She flinched, and for an instant we both froze. Then she lifted her head, eyes brimming with tears. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I never thought you'd find out like that. I was weak. I was. You were selfish, I finished for her. Maybe I was too, in my own ways. But that doesn't excuse any of this. She nodded, tears trailing down her cheeks. The hush that followed felt bottomless. After a long minute, I said, Tomorrow, I want you out. Go, wherever you want. The words were blunt, forced through my clenched jaw. I can't stand seeing you here. She swallowed, her gaze flickering with hurt and acknowledgement. All right. Then we both just stood there, not looking at each other, the storm building between us thicker than any physical wall. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The next morning was excruciatingly quiet. I heard her moving around the house, gathering some essentials. I sat in the living room, half numb, uncertain if she would say goodbye or just slip away. Finally, she stepped into the doorway, holding a small overnight bag. Her voice trembled. I'll come back for the rest of my things. I nodded, not meeting her eyes. I'll arrange a time. She opened her mouth, like she wanted to say something more, but then pressed her lips shut. She dropped her gaze to the floor. Then she set her keys on the table near the door and left. No hugs, no final kiss, just the door closing behind her. The sound echoed like the end of an era. I waited for the wave of relief, or victory, or something. But all I felt was a yawning emptiness. The love I had for her was battered, bleeding, but not entirely dead. And that made the house feel like a mausoleum, full of memories and regrets. I stayed in that place for days, going through the motions. Work, groceries, sleepless nights. I kept the TV on sometimes, just for noise. Once or twice, I almost texted her, demanding answers, or maybe just wanting to hear she was okay. But I stopped myself. Painful as it was, I knew we needed this distance. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. When she finally returned to pick up the rest of her stuff, she brought him with her. I don't know if it was to protect her or to provoke me, but it felt like a slow knife twisting in my gut. The detective, her lover, stood at my door, arms crossed, just a step behind her. I glared at him. You have some nerve showing up here. He didn't answer. She avoided my gaze, asked in a shaky voice if she could pack the bedroom. I just stepped aside. They disappeared down the hall. I stood in the living room, fists clenched at my sides, heart pounding in my ears. This was surreal. My wife rummaging through our life together, collecting pieces of it, while the man she was sleeping with hovered at the threshold. I could hear the rustle of clothes being tossed into suitcases, the muted conversation between them, just low enough that I couldn't make out words. My chest constricted, the desire to lash out mounting. But I forced myself to stay put. Once they were done, she came back into the living room, carrying a bag that seemed heavier than just clothes. Her expression was fragile, as though she might crack. Before walking out, she paused. I'm sorry, she said again, barely above a whisper. For everything. I gave a stiff nod. I know. He lingered in the doorway, meeting my gaze with a mixture of guilt and defiance. Take care, he said, as if that were some meaningful farewell. I said nothing, turning my back to them. The door clicked shut, and this time I felt a finality in the silence. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The weeks that followed were a study in solitary existence. I came home from work to an empty house. I cooked for myself, often leaving a second plate on the table out of some twisted habit. Then I'd sit there, eyes on the empty seat, remembering how she used to tease me about my cooking. Remembering how I once believed we were invulnerable. Sometimes I'd recall the moment I saw them through the motel window, and a surge of rage would grip me so hard I'd have to throw down my fork and pace around the room until it subsided. Sometimes I'd find myself picking up my phone, scrolling through old messages from her. From before all this, a fleeting attempt to recapture the warmth. But every message felt like a lie now, a relic of a life that no longer existed. At night, I'd lie in bed, eyes open, listening to the house creak. My mind replayed the day I proposed to her, how she jumped into my arms with tears of joy. The memory was so vivid it ached. And in those moments, a part of me still missed her, or missed the woman she used to be. Maybe that's the same thing. Maybe it isn't. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Work became my escape, a place where I could focus on logical tasks and avoid people's pity. I never told my coworkers the real story. I made up some vague lie about her traveling for work. They nodded, accepted it, moved on. But inside, I was like a crumbling structure, barely holding together under the weight of heartbreak. One afternoon, out of nowhere, I got a text from her. She wrote, "Need to sign some final papers. Are you okay meeting at the old diner tomorrow?" My throat tightened as I read it. The old diner was where we used to have breakfast on Sundays, a place full of memories. But I typed back a short reply. Fine. 6 p.m. That evening, I showed up earlier, taking a booth at the back. The place smelled of fried eggs and burnt coffee, just like always. I stared at the laminated menu, though I'd eaten here 100 times and knew every item by heart. Then she walked in, hair pulled back, eyes rimmed with fatigue. She slid into the booth across from me. We sat in silence for a moment. The overhead light buzzed softly. She pushed a small stack of documents toward me. "It's for the house. Some adjustments to the mortgage. Once that's done, it's all yours." I stared at the papers. "So this is it?" She nodded, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "It's what we both need." I looked up, catching a glimpse of heartbreak in her gaze. "Do we?" I asked quietly, half hating myself for the question. She leaned forward, voice trembling. "I don't know anymore. I just know I can't go back to the way things were." Anger flared in me again. "We could have worked on it. We could have talked. But you chose the cheap motel, the sneaking around." Her eyes flickered with pain. "I know. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just..." She exhaled shakily, looking away. "I don't expect you to understand. But I did love you. In my own messed up way, I still do. But sometimes, we break things so badly, they can't be fixed." I pressed my lips together, fighting the urge to tell her to go to hell. Instead, I just nodded, grabbed a pen, and signed the papers with quick, angry strokes. My handwriting looked foreign, jagged. I shoved them back across the table. She stared at the signature for a long moment. Then she said, "Thank you." I managed a grim laugh. "Yeah, sure. Thanks for the memories." She flinched at my sarcasm. We both fell silent again. The waitress came by, toppling our tension with a bright, "Can I get you two anything?" We ordered 2 coffees, though neither of us really wanted them. It was more out of habit, like the last echo of a routine we used to share. When the waitress left, my wife, ex-wife, I guess, murmured, He's not who I thought he was, you know. I raised an eyebrow. Michael? She nodded. I'm not. I'm not with him anymore. It burned out quickly. He was never serious. A humorless smile touched her lips, and I realized how badly I'd wrecked everything for a lie. I felt an odd pang, half sympathy, half bitter satisfaction. So he tossed you aside? She shrugged. Or I tossed him aside. Both, maybe. She paused. Doesn't make me any less guilty of hurting you. I just wanted you to know. A lump formed in my throat, but I refused to let it consume me. So that's how it ends for you too. A motel fling that ran its course. She lowered her eyes. Yes. I stared at her, taking in the sight of this person I once adored. The swirl of emotions inside me was chaotic. Pity, anger, longing, regret. But in the end, all I said was, maybe that's what you needed. A fantasy. She nodded. Maybe. We drank our coffees in near silence. The waitress brought our bill, a slip of paper we split without ceremony. No arguments over who pays, no affectionate jokes about me forgetting my wallet. Just two people finalizing the collapse of a life together. Outside, the sun was setting. She stood, looked at me one last time. I hope you find peace, she said. I watched her walk away, the ringless finger on her left hand catching my eye. I didn't watch her get into her car. I just closed my eyes, feeling the weight of finality. Asterisk, 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 I stayed behind in the diner for a while, finishing my coffee, numb. The overhead TV was playing the news in silent captions. An older couple sat across the way, laughing at something. I wondered if they'd gone through betrayals and come out the other side. Or maybe they were just lucky. Suddenly, I felt a surge of jealousy toward them. Eventually, I headed home to the quiet house that was now legally mine. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept. Not well, but enough that I woke up with a shred of clarity. I realized I needed some sense of closure, some kind of forward movement. I gathered up every photo of us. Wedding pictures, vacation snapshots, all the little mementos of our life. I flipped through them, remembering the smiles, the laughter, the times we thought we had it all. It felt surreal. We looked so certain. Then I placed them in a box, sealed it, and shoved it into the back of a closet. I wasn't ready to burn them or throw them away entirely. Part of me wanted to keep that history intact, even if it hurt. But I didn't want to see them every day, reminding me how we failed each other. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I'll never forget the night that followed, the final act in this long, slow tragedy. I was sitting alone in the kitchen again, a single plate in front of me. A battered sense of calm had come over me. I was at the tail end of my grief, or maybe just too tired to rage anymore. That's when the doorbell rang. I stood, my heart leaping with uncertainty. She didn't ring the bell anymore. She'd given me back the keys, and she'd just told me she wasn't with him. So who could it be? I opened the door. There he was, Michael, looking drawn and tense. For a moment, I froze, memories of that punch in his office flickering behind my eyes. He lifted a hand in a gesture of peace. I'm not here to fight, he said. I came to set something right. I stepped aside, letting him in. Not because I forgave him, but because I needed answers. He moved into the hallway, the same hallway my wife and I had once walked side by side, so many times. He cleared his throat, gaze darting around the house as though he was seeing the evidence of the life he'd helped destroy. I know you have every reason to hate me, he began. And I don't blame you. What I did was out of line. I never should have. Save it, I interrupted. Say what you came to say. He nodded, swallowing hard. I just wanted you to know that I feel like hell for what happened. I fell for her, thought it was something real, but it wasn't. We ended it. I lost a lot of clients because of how unprofessional this was. And I held up a hand. You want my forgiveness? He grimaced. I don't expect that. But yeah, maybe I wanted you to hear me out. See if there's anything left but hate. My jaw tightened. For a moment, I considered throwing him out. But then I exhaled. I gave you a job. You lied. You took advantage of her and me. And now you want redemption. I'm not proud of it, he admitted. Every night I think about how stupid I was, mixing business with something else. And it cost me my integrity. I stared at him in silence, recalling the night in the motel parking lot, the image of his silhouette with her, the taste of copper in my mouth from biting my tongue. My hand still tingled with the memory of punching him. A large part of me wanted to see him suffer more, pay some steep price. But as I studied him, I saw a man who already looked defeated. Finally, I spoke. You ruined my marriage. Well, you both did. I can't pretend we didn't have our own problems. But your involvement was the final blow. So no, I don't forgive you. I'm not that big a man. He nodded, eyes downcast. I understand. But if you want to make this right in some small way, I continued, then leave me alone. Let me rebuild whatever's left of my life, without you haunting it. That's all I ask. Can you do that? He sighed, nodded once. I can. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the weight of everything unsaid settling in the space between us. Then he turned and walked out of my house, disappearing into the night. I left the door closed behind him, shutting out the last vestige of that sordid story. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk tonight. Rain drums on the roof again. I stand by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness. The reflection of my living room lamp merges with the slick roads below. I feel a hollow ache in my chest, but it's bearable now. It's the ache of acceptance. I still set 2 plates out sometimes. Old habits die hard. But I don't do it to torment myself anymore. It's more like I'm reminding myself, once upon a time, I believed in us. That memory, painful as it is, keeps me human. I could rage, drown in bitterness. Part of me still wants to. But the bigger part, the part that can face the mirror every morning, insists I move forward. There is no neat resolution. She's gone, and whatever we had is gone with her. I hired a man to spy on my own wife, and he became her lover. I wanted the truth, and I got it, ruthlessly. She wanted to feel alive, and she chased that feeling into a motel bed. He wanted excitement, or a connection, or maybe just a thrill, and I'm left with these quiet nights, nursing the bruise on my heart that may never fully heal. But in the cold hush of this house, I understand something fundamental. I do still love her, even after everything. Love isn't a switch you can flip off just because someone breaks your heart. Maybe that's my curse, or maybe it's proof I can still care about something bigger than my pride. I accept that she's gone, that we're finished, that the life we built is in ruins. But I can't erase the part of me that once adored her, so I set out 2 plates at dinner. I pour a glass of water for her, though she's not here to drink it. Then I eat quietly, methodically, every bite reminding me I'm still alive, no matter how hollow it feels. Over time, maybe I'll stop setting that second plate. Maybe the wound will become a scar, and I'll find a reason to trust again. The storm outside rages a bit harder, rattling the window, flickering the street lamp. I recall the day we took our vows, her soft hand trembling in mine, her eyes bright with hope. If I concentrate, I can still hear her voice saying, I do. Those words echo in my head like a dream already forgotten. They belong to a different time, a different man. Now there's only the steady rhythm of rain and the emptiness of night. I let out a long breath, place the final forkful of food in my mouth, and close my eyes. Sometimes, love is bigger than betrayal, bigger than any revenge. Sometimes, a broken vow simply becomes another chapter in a man's life, a reminder that nothing is guaranteed. The city below keeps shining. The storm will pass, and I, standing here in the dark, remain, wounded but still breathing. I gather the 2 plates. I rinse them off in the sink, feeling the hot water scald my hands. And I wait for morning to come.